Coffee and Calling podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Tyler.
And I am the other host, Anna.
And, normally we would just intro the podcast, tell you about our guests, but today we have a public service announcement. Anna, what did you find in your room earlier today?
I found an earwig, which I just found out about.
It's a really gross bug.
Yeah. They like warm, dark, and damp places.
Yes.
So check your fish tanks.
Your coffee pots.
Under your pillow.
Yeah. Where there's one, there's probably 100.
No,
so
it's not true.
The more you know. All right. Well, today, who is our guest? Who was our guest today?
Our guest was the infamous Sam.
Sam Kauerauf.
Sam Kauerauf
is the youth pastor at the River Church in Marion.
Shout out the river.
That's where I go to church. So Sam's a good buddy. He went through Indiana Wesleyan, got his master's here. And he's been at the river for, did he say 6 years, 7 years?
6 or 7.
6 or 7. And that was not intentional, but that just happened. Yeah, Sam's been around for a while as the youth pastor at the river, and now he's just moved up to being in charge of all student ministries, which includes kids and youth.
Yes.
So he's pretty important.
Very
or something.
legit.
Yeah.
Very legit.
So please, everyone, grab your coffee, which we don't have. That's great.
We will.
Yeah. We will show you our invisible cups. Please grab your coffees and enjoy this conversation with Sam.
Please.
Well, Sam, welcome to the Coffee and Calling podcast.
We're glad to be here. Let's go.
Yeah. So Anna actually doesn't know Sam. She met Sam moments ago as he entered the studio.
It's true.
What are your thoughts of Sam so far?
Sam, you seem like a cool guy.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. I'm honored.
I've heard that you are top 2 youth pastors in Grant County.
Wow.
So
Yeah. Just right up there. It's like neck and neck.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Noah
'cause-
Shigley, my king.
Stay tuned to see if you can get up to number 1. But
Yeah. And we'll have Noah on the show sometime soon.
Oh,
So
maybe we can have the listeners vote.
there we go.
I want Noah Shigley to be my youth pastor.
There we go. Yeah.
So
yeah.
humble. So
Shout out Noah Shigley.
Shout out cohort 6.
Cohort 6. There we
Wow.
go. Yeah. So Sam, you went here at Indiana Wesleyan. You were in the Kern program.
Yep.
You did ministry. What was your major? Youth ministry?
I double majored in kidsmen and youthmen.
Dang,
Nice.
she's a kidsman.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out.
You
kids.
get
It's
the-
probably a little different.
Did you get the
than
Dr.
did.
Springer days?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I miss
shout out the
him.
mustache.
Shout out. Shout out the microphone.
Shout out the microphone.
Yeah.
One time I was in class and the microphone broke.
No.
And it shattered and he didn't know what to do, so he just canceled class.
That
And
kind
just
of,
left.
that kind of breaks my heart.
Yeah, Keith
He's
Springer
the
is one of her
sweetest.
favorite people on
Oh.
earth. Yeah.
Love him.
I'll protect him at all costs.
Yes, he's so precious.
And you know what? This is crazy. We have a photo from his Lakeview days before the mustache.
Mhm.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I'm looking at you, and it's very similar.
Whoa. I am
Low
honored.
key. Pull it up.
Yeah, I'll show you
Style
after the podcast.
icon.
Yeah.
That's actually so true.
Yeah, so we'll put up a picture right here of old Keith or young Keith Springer, and you be the judge.
So if you want to see where you're going to be in like 50, 60 years, just look at Keith Springer.
There
Just
you
look
go.
at Keith
I'm on
Springer.
the right track.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
The mustache is gonna
Well,
start growing.
I want nothing more in my life than to grow a solid like Travis Kelce mustache.
There we go. Oh,
Like,
Travis.
God
Kelce
has
mustache.
not had that be my plan. So,
Yeah, not yet.
not yet.
Not yet. It's once.
But
you
if that's gonna come, like, come Lord Jesus, amen.
Yeah.
Let's go.
once you become a dad, that's when the
Oh.
follicles
Okay.
really wake up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Something about like a crying baby just wakes up the lip follicles, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how we got here, but we're here. Okay. All right. Sam, would you tell us your call to ministry story? How has God led you into ministry?
Yeah, so ministry was not, I grew up going to church my whole life and I was a youth group kid through and through. But like ministry is nowhere in my family. Like I really didn't know anyone other than the pastors at my church that were pastors, right?
Yeah.
And so was never really a thought that I had. But honestly, my call to ministry story is has some kind of bad intentions into it that God turned for good things. Because honestly, my junior year of high school, I went on this mission trip to Brooklyn, New York.
Shout out Brooklyn, New York.
out
Let's
Brooklyn.
go.
Let's go. But no, I went on a mission trip to Brooklyn, New York with my youth group. I was always liked being like the quote unquote like spiritually superior one in my youth group. And I was starting to see that other people in my youth group were also having really cool moments with God. And me and my teenage undeveloped brain took that as a threat. And so I was like, all right, like, what can I do to like have a step above them?
How do I one up all these kids?
How do I one up everyone? All the ministry, right? So I said, then I think I would have just said like God had called me into ministry. But now I think when I've been in my adult brain, have been reflecting back, there was definitely some sort of like spiritual superiority in the mix.
Yeah.
Of trying to be that kid in my youth group that got the speaking at the events and all that stuff. But like it says in Genesis 50:20, like what the enemy intended for evil, God intended for good. Like what's so cool is that like even in my really flawed like my flawed approach to it, that God used it for good. And I believe I'm called to ministry, and I still am called to ministry. And yeah, and so I started processing it my junior of high school. I was on a mission trip, and I was a pretty smart kid growing up. And so I just always assumed I was going to do something smart, I guess.
Doctor, lawyer.
I didn't know what it would be, but like, I'm a super competitive person. And so I was like, whatever makes me look like super smart in comparison to everyone else, that's what I want to do.
So lab coats, suits.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
I want all that.
Neurosurgeon.
Anyway, yes.
Is what I'm
yes.
hearing.
You would wear the
Yeah.
glasses without prescription lenses.
Oh.
Just
100%. When I was in eighth grade, I like lied on my eye test so that I could get
That's crazy.
glasses. Now again, God just like with the evidence for evil, God intended for good. Now I can't see without my contacts. But anyway, and I hate it. But yeah, then it was October, and we were in a Sunday school class in my high school, and God started really saying like, hey, I like actually think this is what you're going to be able to do. So I went to my youth pastor's office, and like my youth pastor had just, that mission trip was his very first week with us. So it was still kind of like new relationship. And I was like, hey man, like, I'll be totally honest. Like I really didn't really know what I was saying, but like I can't even tell you what the message was in Sunday school that day, but it was really like, maybe start thinking about ministry, and is this something you could see me doing? And he's like, yeah, I could totally see you doing that. But what he told me is, he said that if you see yourself called anything else, do that as opposed to ministry, because if God's really calling you to ministry, that is going to be the only thing you can see yourself doing. And so I took that advice to heart, but then I went and I told my parents about it, and my parents, out of protection of me, weren't like not supportive, but weren't like thrilled, right? And it was the first time I've really had to like wrestle with God alongside my parents, and it actually I think it really made us closer, because we ended up having a really cool just like come to Jesus moment with all of us together for it. But it was actually in my youth pastor's office that same day I started talking about like, what's this mean for college, yada yada yada. And I didn't know like anything in Indiana existed. I knew Indiana existed like as a state, but like that's about it.
Where are you from?
I'm from Illinois. So literally like
okay.
a neighbor, but like anyway.
Like a suburb of Chicago, or
no, Chicago's fake Illinois. Everything else is real Illinois.
There we go. Let's go.
Anyway, that's when he started talking. His job beforehand was doing some sort of pastorate in the like Fort Wayne area, and so knew about Indiana Wesleyan.
That's where she's from.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Born and raised.
But that got me to Indiana Wesleyan, and now I'm here. But yeah, going through high school, I was really wrestling. Like I remember I had a moment with my high school physics teacher where I told my high school physics teacher that I wanted to be in a call to ministry, and she pretty much said that is a terrible idea, right? And it was the first time I've been like, oh, people may not like actually like this. Like people may disapprove of this, right?
Yeah.
And I'm, as you've heard from my story, I'm I'm a type 3 on the Enneagram. Like, I'm so achieving oriented, so dependent upon what other people think of me, that that really crushed me. And so I started to think, well, my youth pastor said, if you can do something else other than youth ministry, then you're probably not called to ministry. And so what's that something else that I can do so that I can rationalize myself out of a call to ministry? And so I started, like, I applied here to IWU as like, I'll be a ministry major, but also be a math major.
Oh, yeah.
Because
a lot of synergy there.
I love math, I guess. And
it's safe because there's always numbers.
Yeah. And then I was like, okay, God made it very clear that he wanted me to work with people. So like, what's the closest I could do to ministry that is working with people that's not ministry? Well, I volunteered in my kids ministry, like was a kids min major, loved it. And so I was like, okay, I'll be an education major, because that's like pretty much the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So I came here as an education and a ministry major, and I really struggled my first year of ministry or of college, because one, there was just some like maturity and sin patterns in my life that I was really wrestling through, but also, like, again, I liked being this spiritually superior person in my youth group. But then I got here and I realized, oh, everyone in my intro to men class, they were also that person at their youth group.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, I'm like, okay, now I got to rise myself above them. Right. And so then ministry for my whole freshman year was, okay, how can I show that I am better than all of these people? Right. And so God was really humbled me very fast. There was a campus ministry here on campus that, like, I'm like, oh, this is how I'm going to be. This is how I'm going to be in ministry. This is how I'm going to grow. Right. This is how I'm going to show I'm superior to others. And then God didn't give me that position. Right.
Wow.
Or I wanted to be a chaplain because that's the most spiritually holy person in the hall. Right. You know? So, and I didn't get the chaplain position. Right. And so then God was like, all right, God, what are you doing here? And it's at a point where I felt so spiritually mediocre to all my peers that I was like, maybe this just isn't it for me. And so I planned, after leaving here my freshman year, to stay at home and not come back. I had registered for classes, I had done all the thing, but I was like, all right, God, you're gonna have to make it abundantly clear to me that we're gonna do this year. And so I decided to do an internship at my home church in children's ministry to test it out, right? And I hated my high school job, so I did not want to go back to doing that. Anyway, I did children's ministry that summer, and the internship was actually really bad. The children's pastor that I was under, we didn't click really well, and I was doing a lot of more work than I should have as an intern. And I'm like, all right, God, is this you telling me no? Well, my youth pastor that I had talked about at the beginning, he kind of changed our summer trip philosophy, that instead of going on mission trips, we were going to do a summer retreat at this beach place in South Carolina. And I'd grown up going to it my last 2 years at high school. I loved it. A total like holy ground place for me, my walk with Jesus. My brother, my mom, and my dad were all going to be volunteers on this trip, and I was going to be like left at home, and I was so sad. And so I was like convincing my youth pastor like every day, like, pick me. And he would say like, no, like, you're doing your internship here. Yeah. Anyway, flash forward to like a week before the trip, and I wasn't allowed to go on the trip because my children's pastor was going to be on vacation that week, and someone needed to cover for her. And then she like last minute like shifted up her vacation times, where she was now going to be there. And then there was an influx of middle school boys that like last minute signed up, and the middle school boys small groups came there, and I was like, hey. And he's like, fine, okay, you can go. So like I end up with going on this trip, and I had a group of 6 boys, middle school boys, that I in no business deserve being their leader, based on what the patterns of my life, based on where I was at spiritually, based on a lot of those things. But God, just in his kindness, just opened this up so clearly to me. And it was the best week of my entire life. Besides my honeymoon, shout out my wife, but then that one. But man, God just did a work in me spiritually. I actually dedicate that week to being my recommitment moment with Christ, because that was like, all right, God, like this is me and you all in now. Like, I'm not doing this for the clout. I'm not doing this for it to be my thing. Like, I'm doing this because you are God and you deserve my life. Right.
Wow.
And I fell in love with these boys, and it was a group of boys that 5 of the 6 boys had been like my kids that I was volunteering with in kids ministry, now grown up. So I already had that relationship, but there's this one boy in there that was a friend of one of those boys. And, I got to have my first moment walking a kid through salvation and through the path to Jesus. And I was like, I have to always do this. Like, this is the greatest thing I've had my entire life. And God just like, that week was just such a holy moment for me that God just really instilled like, hey, this has been a really messed up path that you've really confused a lot of things in here, but this is still what I want you to do. But are you going to do it on my terms? And are you going to do it for my kids? And so I decided I was coming back. I switched from kids in education to kids in youth, and started plugging more in at the River.
Shout out the River.
Shout out the River Church. And yeah, and so that's like, then my call to ministry was solid there. But the piece that God still had to work out of me is I was doing it like, my call to ministry was like hashtag FTK, like for the kids, right? Like, I'm doing this for the kids. And so the problem with that was that a lot of my spiritual formation, I was doing it to be a good pastor, to be good enough for these kids, to do the things that God's calling me to be. And so for me, time with the Lord and prayer and spiritual formation was all a means to an end of something that I wanted. And it wasn't growing a relationship with God. And so God became like my boss, or my like, God didn't become like my savior, my father, my Lord, right? The person I want to have a relationship with. And so, so much, because I'd gotten the competition piece out, but I hadn't gotten putting my identity in ministry out of me. And so, COVID happened my third year, the year I moved from undergrad to master's. And so much of my identity was built upon doing ministry and being with kids and really getting involved in here at the River and other places and being an RA. I love doing that. And then all of it got stripped away. Yeah. Right. Wow. I was back at home. I was working at Ace Hardware.
Wow.
Shout out Ace.
No, not shout out Ace. Not shout out Ace. Yeah, I had to work at a hardware store in the middle of the pandemic when it was like, everyone lost all social skills, so it was not. And
everybody's coming to do home improvement projects.
I know nothing about home improvement. So
if you had to pick these screws or these screws, which one would you pick?
I always lied. Probably like send a bunch of people in the wrong way. But anyway, that's what I have returns for. Anyway,
there you go. Yeah.
I was working at Ace Hardware and hated it and just wanted to be back here, but so I was going to work at a church in Indianapolis for their internship that summer, and then it got canceled because of COVID. And so one of my friends here had wanted me to work at Spring Hill camps for the entirety of my time here, and I said like, no, I don't want to do that. And it's either that or Ace Hardware, so like let's do that this summer.
Those Spring Hill people, they're very convincing.
They're cutthroat. And as now a Spring Hill person, I too am that cutthroat. So they get you there. But anyway, how Spring Hill works is there's a staff member that's they're called res staff. They like run your section of the camp, and then there's ADs, which is what I was. And so I had this college student that was over me and was essentially supposed to like mentor me, kind of like an RA, right? And he really, even though camp wasn't happening, he discipled me that whole summer up until that point. And I never met this person my whole life. And it was the first time since I was like a sophomore in high school that I was just doing spiritual formation for spiritual formation, right? There was no ministry attached, there was no classes, there was no serving. Like, I was just like learning about God and growing with God for no reason other than just to live the life that God's called me to and have a greater relationship with my Father, right? And God really worked at that time and worked my love for him. And I think that that's the point where like God became like the Lord of my life, and that ministry was just an overflow of that relationship with him. And I really kind of gave up the idol of having my identity in ministry. And that's something that continues to come back as just when you work 40 hours a week in ministry, like that it's easy to make it an identity, part of your identity and part of an idol. Man, God's been so faithful since then. And that summer I met my wife at Spring Hill. So that's why I love Spring Hill. But then that summer while I was there, I got a call from the River Church asking me to step on as a resident. And so it's like, just like, so the coolest work of now being here, man, my call to ministry story would have started 10 years ago now.
Wow.
Man, God, just seeing the ways he had pruned me in seasons to prepare me for the next season, right? Like, if I wouldn't have had that discipling moment that summer at Ace Hardware on Zoom, I would not have been the person that would have been ready to start a relationship with Elizabeth, who would eventually be my wife, would not have been ready to be the person that stepped in to be here at the river. And just like, or like I was planning on working back at my home church after graduation. I was going to graduate here in 3 years and leave. And then that really fell through. And so I decided I'm just going to do Kern because I need some like buffer time, right?
Yeah.
But then if it wouldn't have been for that summer, I would have left and been trying to find a ministry job during that summer and would have missed out on all those experiences, right? So like all these things that God was just clearly orchestrating to create the person that I am today and create the ministry that I get to do today. And so, yeah, August 2020, I accepted the job as the middle school resident and did that my first year master's. And then jumping into my second year master's, I took the full-time job as a student pastor there and have been doing that now for I'm in my 5th year of being the full-time student pastor. But then this school year jumped on as now leading all of our family ministry. So kids, men, preteen, middle school, high school, the whole gambit. And it's been super fun. So yeah.
And as somebody who has a 4.5-year-old in kids ministry and just getting to go to the river and see Sam work, Sam does an incredible job and everybody says the same thing. So, you know, Sam, I hope he doesn't walk out of here with a huge head. I don't think he will, but
my head's already huge.
But man, you said something that I think is so key for our listeners to latch onto. And it's this idea that I like to talk about the role of a pastor is you do the role of a pastor, but you still do the life of an ordinary Christian. And it's not something that is like sandwiched and intermixed. There is this two thing. There's the equipping of the people of God to go out and do the work of ministry. But then over here, you're just a Christian. You're just somebody who seeks the Lord and somebody who seeks his face, dwells in his presence, reads his word, prays, and does the work of personal evangelism on the side, separate from this. Now they intermix, obviously, but when somebody is a pastor or is training to be a pastor, getting that right as soon as possible sets you up on a great foundation with God right away.
Yeah.
Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I just think it's God's, when I get to heaven one day, he's going to tell me like, well done, good and faithful servant, not well done, good and faithful pastor, right? Like the thing that he's going to say to me is going to be the same thing that he says to everyone else.
Yeah.
Right. And ministry, it's honestly like all that stuff of the work of a follower of Jesus is like, it's the fuel that like makes ministry work, right? Like, and like it makes it so much more than just a job. It makes it an overflow, right? And like, because like, man, ministry is hard. It's hard work, and if it's just work, man, there's like our senior pastor says a lot of times there's a whole lot more ways to make a lot more money and to be just as miserable, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's an overflow and a calling, man, like there's no work that's more rewarding. And so
yeah, because and if you intermix the two, making ministry and being a Christian work like together, you can quit that.
Yeah.
and you can step out of both.
Yeah.
But as long as you keep the two kind of on different playing fields, even if you kind of step out of, let's say, pastoring roles, you're still here and you still have that foundation with Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
that's good.
I think that's something that I, as a young pastor, I expected like my church staff to do that for me, right? Like I expected them to make the pathways for me to feel spiritually alive, right? And I was like, that's no one else's responsibility other than me, because for everyone else, it's no one else's responsibility other than themselves, right? And so like I have to do that work. That's my job. That's my job to continue to keep my flame burning. And so, yeah.
So good.
So good.
Do you have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
I do. So I found it so interesting to see how, I think we've seen it in all the people that we've talked to, and just the way that you can really reflect on your story and the way that God's called you and see how he's been working and how he's used what the enemy meant for bad for good. And I just love that reflection part. So I'm just curious, what would you say you're learning either about God in this season of life or about leadership, about your job? Kind of open-ended, but yeah, what are you learning right now?
Yeah. So something I have always, so like I said at the beginning, I really struggle with how other people view me. That's always like, if I'm not careful, that's can clearly be my primary motivator. And so something I've always said is I struggle with discernment. I struggle with making decisions. You fill in the blank, right? And so I have always said I have a discernment issue. And then kind of out of nowhere, we were doing this retreat with my staff in January, and God said like, no, Sam, you don't have a discernment issue. You have a courage issue. You know what you're supposed to do, right? But you just, every decision we have has negative effects, right? And so as I've stepped into leadership and as I've stepped into more of a supervising role, more of a, just I have my head in a lot more things than I used to. And then also trying to lead my family, and my wife and I are expecting our first daughter in December. And so like a lot of things I'm like having to make big decisions about, and it's just like I have to show courage, and like I can't settle the fact like, oh, I'd have a discernment issue, so I don't have to make that decision. And I think something else that God has been really teaching me is we went on a mission trip to the Dominican Republic with my high schoolers in July. And it was awesome. And our high schoolers did an incredible job. And it was so cool to have a front row seat just to serve alongside them. But anyway, a lot of the ministry we'd do is we go into people's houses alongside church leaders in the Dominican and just minister to people and care for people, invite them to their church, yada, yada, yada. And I found it to be super easy, right? And I would go into people's houses and speak to people through a translator, and I knew what to do. I knew what to say. And I was on our bus ride back to our site that day, and I was like, dang, I have 5 neighbors and I know one of their names.
Wow.
And so I'm like, God, why is it so easy for me to do all of these, kind of like what you were talking about earlier, Tyler, like it's so easy for me to realize all these things in a ministry context. And then when it comes to the life that Jesus has called us to live. And so something that God has been calling me to do is like love my physical neighbor, right? Or like love my, the person that's behind me at the grocery store, or that kind of stuff. And so I'm really trying to strengthen my ability to talk to strangers, which if they roll into the River Church is so easy for me to do.
Right.
But then in Aldi is so hard, and I don't know why, right? Or it's easy to do it in the Dominican Republic and not easy to do in Swayze, Indiana, right?
Yeah.
And so God has really been honestly humbling me in a lot of that kind of stuff. But man, it's been because a lot of people on our team are super evangelistic. That's just I have a heart for evangelism. It just comes a lot harder for me. And so God's been really convicting me on that, and every time I think I've mastered it, he holds me accountable for it. So like we have this behind the street neighbor named Bob, and Bob's like an old guy that lives by himself. And if you're going to talk to Bob, he's going to keep you for an hour, right?
Shout out Bob.
Shout out Bob.
Shout out.
And every time, like, gosh, there's a million things I could be doing other than talking to Bob right now. And like, but like every time God humbles me, like, hey, remember what you said in the Dominican Republic, right? And so every Friday, my dog and I, we go out and water the plants, and we talk to Bob. And it's been really cool to build a relationship with my neighbor,
That's
and
awesome.
who I lived across the street from literally for a year and a half and had never talked to, right?
Mm.
So that's what God's talking to me about right
Wow.
now.
And
That's
the two
awesome.
are like go together. Like it takes courage
Uh-huh.
to then talk to strangers.
Yeah.
That's
So,
awesome.
Wow,
That's so cool. So something we were talking about kind of before the podcast began, we were talking about kind of the lineage at the river with youth pastors. And if I remember right, there was a stint, there was a long youth pastor that was there for a long tenured time.
Mm-hmm.
Then there were kind of 3 in fairly quick succession.
Yep.
And then you've been there now for 6 years.
Yeah.
So a lot of people talk about youth ministry as kind of the stepping stone to greater ministry. You know, this kind of like false thing. So tell me about how are you able to keep the longevity in youth ministry? And as of right now, I can't answer this for you, but you're not planning on leaving it anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
You're planning on being in there, leaning in with those kids. How do you stay in this kind of longevity space in youth ministry at this same church?
Yeah. Well, before getting into that, something that we talked about as our team and our all staff last month was like, in ministry right now, we're standing on the shoulders of people that went before us, right? And so there's a youth pastor before me. His name was Matt Rhodes, and he really led this youth ministry from nothing to something, right? And so like, yes, I have really got to do a lot of really awesome things with this youth ministry, but it's also standing on the shoulders of the people that were ahead of me. Even the ones that were there for only year stints at a time, man, like I'm standing on their shoulders. I learned under them. They welcomed me in this ministry.
And all those kids that were with them are gone now, but those kids brought in other kids that kind of have this trickling effect.
And so, I'm honored to have learned under them, but stepping under the role, I'll be honest, I was here at the river for a good time, but not for a long time is what I had come in with. I was like, okay, like, I don't know what I'm doing. They're offering me a job for the next 2 years while I'm finishing out my master's. Okay, I'll do that. And then I'll figure it out.
You'll go back to Illinois because Illinois needs Jesus.
Illinois does need Jesus. But also Indiana needs Jesus.
That's true.
And I just, part of my role, my first year was we were kind of redoing, okay, how coming out of COVID, how we're going to do youth ministry. We can't gather in the same way in the youth ministry because between the youth pastor before me and myself was just some volunteers, including myself, were doing some interim role, and we kind of really withered down the youth group to a pretty small group. And then now we're coming out of COVID. So we decided we're going to launch in life groups. Instead of having a youth group gathering, we're going to do life groups. And then they meet once a month for a big gathering. And so I ended up with a group of junior high boys that I absolutely fell in love with. And what was so cool is like, if you go back to my, my story with the boys in the retreat in South Carolina, where God gave me a call to ministry, the next year I was really wrestling with like, that was supposed to be my senior year. That was supposed to be when I left. And I was like, gosh, like I knew at that point that I wasn't going to come back to Springfield First. And I love these relationships with these boys. I'm like, God, like, why are you making me leave these boys? And God had really said like, yes, you're leaving these boys, but like there is more to come. And then I had kind of been like a year between of kind of nothing. And then it was, these boys were that answer to prayer. Right. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, God, all right, if you're calling me to stay, and like, let's do it. And so, these kids that were in 7th and 8th grade now, God just really gave me just an incredible heart for them. And, I started like, okay, I want to be here for these boys. But then again, like I said, I can tend to have like this, like for the kids mindset. Yeah. And like something that, our executive pastor, Amy Beagle, is one of the wisest people I know. And something that she said is, you can't just fall in love with this church and this kids, you have to fall in love with this community. Dang. Right. Like if your heart doesn't break for this community, like you're not gonna stay here for forever. Right. Like this, you're not gonna fall in love with this place because, this church is gonna fail you. And if you don't have a heart for these people, like you're gonna want to go to someplace that's easier. Yeah. Right. And so I was like, all right, I grew up away from here. I went to school here. I was in the bubble. Like I didn't know this community. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to sink my teeth into wherever I can get for this community. So I started subbing in some of our local schools.
Wow.
On my Fridays, and both to like give myself like, I was a stranger to a lot of these students, and in this community, like you're like people knowing you matters a lot. And so wanted to get that in there, but just then like meeting those students and being in the spaces with those students really broke my heart for this community. And then just finding more places to be at in Grant County, God just really said like, all right, this is made it missional, right? It wasn't a job, it was a mission. And when they offered me the full-time job, I was really, all right, God, like, are we doing this? And God had kind of really shaken me up about how so I came into my youth group in 6th grade, and my youth pastor there started when I was in 6th grade, and he stayed all the way through my junior of high school, so that he was there for like 6 years, and all the ones beforehand were like a year and 9 months. They went through, I think, 7 youth pastors in 6 years before my youth pastor I had.
Wow.
And he just like completely changed the community from his stay. And I think God like really told me like, you are on the brink of something big if you stay. Just like watch what I do. And so Elizabeth felt that call too, and so we stayed, and there's just like so much power in the stay.
Power in the stay, that's good.
Oh, that's a bar.
But something that was cool, I have a group of my upperclassmen boys I meet for breakfast on Tuesday mornings, and I honestly forget what we're talking about, which is really bad because it's like 2 hours ago. But we're talking about having a servant heart. And when my students said to me, he's like, Sam, we used to come here like to hang out with you because you're like, we're cool and whatnot, but like, no offense, we don't do that anymore. Dang. I was like, okay, total offense. But he's like, no, like what I'm saying is like, we needed you like in that moment, but now like you have, if students just fall in love with you, right, then like they're gonna leave when you leave, right? Or when you don't give them the attention that they want, they're gonna leave, right? But they have what's like the power of my stay works, but how God has convicted the heart of our students, and now they're on here for him and him alone, right? Like I think there is power in me being there, but I think my students now would be there regardless who is in the role, and regardless of who's speaking. We're in our I think like 10th week of high school nights this school year, and the 3 most powerful nights have been the 3 nights that students have spoke, right? So now it's like even like my voice is kind of being drowned out, and now the students are taking the spots. Yeah, there's power in longevity, there's power there, but my longevity alone is not what's going to be the aid for students. It's only if the Lord meets them and convicts their hearts. And
yeah,
so,
and I think one of the things in the longevity that you're talking about is the Lord through you has created an atmosphere and a culture, one that infects anyone that enters into it and stays in it long enough. Yeah. And so part of that longevity is you are a figure that helps maintain that culture and that atmosphere throughout. And so much so now, like you're talking about, it's infected your students enough. And I say infected sounds bad, but it's a good thing.
It's spread.
Yeah. It's like wildfire. It's spread, and now they're on fire. And even if you were to leave, they would carry that fire on. But there is something about you as the youth pastor that you are the one that is the constant, where they're gonna go from middle school to high school, and then they're gonna leave youth group altogether. You are still the constant in that space. Yeah. That's so powerful, I think.
Yeah. And I think part of my role now as the family ministries pastor is like, I'm starting to like reproduce myself out of a lot of these ministries. And so part of my role is to empower other leaders and other interns and residents and staff to be that for this next generation of students.
Yeah.
And so that's been almost like, I feel like a proud dad a little bit now. So like I get to watch that happen, and like I get to see the middle schoolers now that I just like pop in for 10 minutes on a Sunday. Now I get to have the Ashlands and the Levis and all those people would be the Keatons to be the ones that they are their constant, their youth pastor now. And it's been really special.
Yeah, so. Soon you'll be a ministry grandpa too.
Ministry grandpa.
Yeah. That's so cool. Charlie Alcock always talks about how like true leadership is empowering and uplifting other leaders, and so that's really cool to see how you're like stepping into that role in leadership.
Yeah, and now we've managed to name drop Charlie Alcock in the
Shout
last 3
out.
epissodes. Yeah. That's
He's
so funny.
just so foundational.
Yeah, he's so
you
foundational
know?
for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
yeah, he's awesome. He's awesome. All right, Anna, you want to ask Sam our last question?
Yeah. Are you ready, Sam?
I'm so ready.
All right, let me reposition. All right, Sam. If you were to step into a time machine and go back to the season of life where you first got called into ministry, what would you tell your younger self?
I think, well, what I've been thinking about as this episode has been going is I would tell myself to like not limit what God is going to have you do. Right? I think I spent so much of my time like saying like, okay, God, this is how this is going to turn out. Like I'm going to be the middle school pastor at Springfield First and they like all this stuff, right? Or like I'm going to follow this group of kids. I'm going to whatever. And I think my like most ministry moments that I've had is when God's kind of turned the page on what I did. Like I distinctly remember I was at lunch my like sophomore year of college with one of our church families, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm not staying in Marion, and I'm never gonna work with middle schoolers. And I think there's probably like a third thing, and that I said I was never gonna do, and now it's like my favorite things to do, right? But I think I missed out on so much of what God wanted to do in me and through me because I had such a specified box that I wanted to move. And God moved in the box, but man, if I would have let go of the box, like how much more of God could have come out, right? And so like surrender is so hard. Surrender is so hard, especially when you don't know the answer of the surrender. My mentors had me read a lot of John Eldredge recently. And John Eldredge is one of his things he's most known for is the 1 minute pause, and twice a day you're supposed to say like, God, I give everything and everyone to you, right? And you're supposed to repeat it over and over again until you believe it. And like there's a moment in my office yesterday that I was like, it was more than a 1 minute pause because I like was not going to believe in that moment. But like I remember I was my first year on staff here. I was still living on campus, and I went to the Kim chapel and had a really rough boys group that night. And I remember like I just like took out a picture of like all most amount of students I had, and I like went over them name by name, and I was like, God, like I give Carson to you, and like he's yours, he's not mine. God, I give Beckham to you, he's yours, not mine. Just went through student after student after student, and that's like a moment that God has like replayed in my mind over and over again about just like, man, like this isn't yours. This isn't yours to define. These kids aren't yours. This ministry isn't yours. This church isn't yours. And the more you hold on to it, the more you're going to miss out on what I have for you. And that's really easy to say and like in retrospect, right? In some of the seasons, like it's really hard, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I just like think I missed out on so much my college years because I put them in a box. So
That's so good. What a way to end. That's so good. Sam, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I had a great conversation.
Yeah. It's filled my soul. Thank you for the wisdom poured out.
Yeah. So you're right there, youth pastor 1 or 2. Yeah. We'll have the audience vote when Noah.
Should Noah and I do like fight night? Like that'd be so fun live on the podcast. Actually, Noah was a college athlete, and I got cut from my 6th grade basketball team, so I probably would put my money on Noah.
That's so funny. We'll have multiple layers of competition.
There you go.
Yeah. Make
so
it
good.
fair.
There you go. Put a Taylor Swift lyric test. I'm there.
I don't know. Maybe Noah's a closeted Swiftie. Who
There you go.
knows? Yeah, that's crazy.
Closet Swiftie.
Hey, there's a lot of them. You know.
Are you one of them?
No, this is you're putting me on the spot here because you got a Swiftie right here, but yeah, I'm not a fan of Taylor Swift.
Are you a Swiftie?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I can respect when people are not.
Yeah.
So
Good.
each their own.
Okay.
Each their own.
That's
Good.
good.
You practice tolerance,
I
not like a
practice
lot of other Swifties. You went to an Eras Tour concert, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Wow.
Yes.
You should talk with Casey about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out Casey.
Shout out Casey.
Previous guest.
Yeah.
So good. All right, wind
Yeah.
us down. Wind us down, Anna.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to just this awesome episode with our guest, Sam. So much wisdom poured out. Yeah.
Amen.
So good. So good. Well, this week, I hope that your cup overflows.